Spent 3 hours today in the garage here. Still not feeling the greatest. I don't know what this thing is, man. But I'm not feeling the greatest. All the rats and PCRs are negative. But yet I'm kind of still, with this headache, lethargy, nausea. It kind of reminds me, the second and the third jab that I got, these are the symptoms that I got. Basically identical. But when I do the PCR test, it's negative. So I don't really know what's going on. But all I know is that I've got this headache and I can't shake it off. Whether this is going to progress into some sort of COVID positive or not, I'm not sure. But that's what I've got at the moment. So I decided today to prolong being outdoors as much as possible. Ended up being 3 hours. I was taking a whole lot of breaks, long breaks in between these sets. All I really did today was good mornings, essentially. I think it was like 20 sets, 15, 20 sets of just an empty bar good mornings. I actually went to 40 kilos. I did, I think, 5 sets of those. They didn't feel all that good. I actually preferred the empty bar because the empty bar just lets you focus on that hamstring stretch, and that's it. And that was basically the session. I ended it up with a bit of squatting. I worked up to 3 plates for a set of 5. It's just really hard to feel strong through your core when you can't really, lock your core down, basically. And the locking of that core down increases your blood pressure, and that, therefore, causes a worsening of the headache. And so that was me today, man. 3 hours of just basically walking around the garage and in and out of the place. The quarantine is going to end on Friday. Today is Monday, so a whole bunch more days to go. Can't really go anywhere, can't do anything. I don't even know if I'm going to go back to work. The headache is just non-stop. I don't know if the work is going to be good for me. And the nausea is weird, man. It comes and goes. And the craziest thing is I remember these symptoms, exact symptoms, not with the first jab, with the second and the third jab. The third jab was by far the worst. The second one was kind of like, I felt it. The third jab, man, I felt like they gave me corona, man. That's how it felt. So these symptoms that I'm getting now are worse than the third jab. But the PCR is negative, so I don't know what's going on. Maybe this is going to progress, maybe it's not. It's just frustrating that I can't train. I can't train, I can't do anything. I want to be either healthy or with COVID. Don't give me this half-assed crap, man. What is this? Either I got COVID or I don't. Anyway, that's what I did. I did a whole bunch of good mornings, just focused on the stretch. A few of those sets, I think I did 5 sets of kind of like a wide stance good morning. The first kind of set or 2 felt not too bad. I actually felt like I was loading the hamstrings even more, and I was catching a bit of that adductor as well. But then by the 3rd and the 4th set, I started getting a bit of almost like knee pain. I feel like I was just leaning too much on the cruciate ligaments. That's kind of how it felt, because I was kind of like turning my feet out because of the wide stance, and it just felt off of my knees. So I went back to narrow stance, and I think I'm not going to go back to wide stance at all. It's just weird, especially if you're doing it fairly strict, fairly, hard knees. It just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. When I've got feet, parallel, narrow, I feel like I'm stacking the knees properly. The muscles are running along the same, plane of movement as the bar's moving. Whereas with the wide stance, I feel like the feet and the knees are pointing one way, but the bar is moving the other way and the hips are moving the other way. So it's kind of strange. So I played around with that. Basically, it was just a 3-hour session of just me doing that. Did some squatting. I thought about doing some bench press, but bench press, I remember last time when I got the jab, the third jab, I tried bench pressing, and that was the worst, man, because you're laying down, and so the blood pressure or the intracranial pressure is even higher just because you're laying down. And then if you start, really doing the proper bracing, then, further increases the blood pressure. So clearly something is inflamed. Something within me is inflamed. All the vessels are inflamed. Just can't shake it. I did another rat today. That's also negative. But I've been, I can't really train a lot. So in between all those sets, I was doing a lot of kind of research. A bunch of you guys said about that. I think his name is Magnus, the professional climber. They had a, first out kind of deadlift 1 RM attempt with Juji Mufu in that video, where he was basically just doesn't really know how to deadlift, yet he was able to do a double body weight deadlift. And the whole kind of conversation around that was upper back. How much does upper back help us to do our deadlift? How much involvement does the upper back have, and how much does it help us? And these type of experiments, these type of thought processes are really good for us, because here is a guy who's never really trained specifically for the deadlift. Yeah, he can do a double body weight deadlift. He's 60 kilos or whatever, 65 kilos, and he was able to do 140 or something along those lines. So that's encouraging for us, because we know that he's advanced in his upper back strength from all the pull-ups and from all the hanging and whatever. So his shoulder girdle is really strong, at least the lats is really, really strong. And so what's attributing to that really good deadlift pull? It has to be the upper back. Remember how I explained it, how I think about it. When you start pulling the deadlift, the initial kind of push into the floor, if you don't have really strong lats, your shoulders will roll forward and you will compromise your upper back. And then it's like a domino effect. Your upper back loses positioning, and then your mid back kind of is fighting against a bigger lever, and then your lower back, and then you start rounding over completely. So it starts with the upper back. If you can hold that lat contraction really hard and prevent that shoulder joint from unstacking itself, then you've got a good chance. So there's no leaking of power. And that's essentially what the whole thing is about, the deadlift. I've listened to so many people talk about this. It's all about creating tension. This idea of creating tension, what does that mean? Well, for me, it means locking down the lats and locking down that midsection. A lot of people say take a big, massive breath of air into kind of your belly, not the thoracic, into the belly, and then kind of contract. For me, though, I've never done really well with a massive breath. It always kind of made me feel dizzy. So I take a normal breath, like a normal breath, maybe a little bit bigger than a normal, and I clench down. But if I take a massive breath, like a fully expand, then I just feel like I'm going to blow my head off. It's just way too much pressure for me to deal with that. So that's how I do it. But it's all about tension. And I think if you've got really strong lats, and I don't know how many people I've seen who have really good development of the upper back, and they have seemingly really skinny legs, and they have extremely impressive pulls. I don't know how many guys like that I've seen. There's been a lot of guys like that. These deadlift specialists, a lot of these guys are also, built for it in terms of arm length and torso length and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of these guys have really good developed lats. And I think that's not by coincidence. I think it's for a reason that they have really strong lats. And that's kind of the cause of it. So, with Magnus, I thought it was really interesting. There was another guy that one of you guys linked as well that I saw deadlifting. I think it's a really interesting thought process to have these calisthenics guys rock up and do these really impressive deadlifts. Now you have to, remember that these guys all have slight body weight. So it's, if you're a smaller guy, a double body weight is not as impressive as if you are, 150 kilo. It's kind of like, big guys. I think Eddie Hall was something like 200 something kilos, 10 kilos or something like that. Really, really big guy when he lifted 500 kilos. So that's not even triple body weight. That's a big dude moving a lot of weight. But when you see like a 50 kilo guy deadlift 100, it's not as impressive. It's impressive, but it's not as impressive as somebody lifting a world record like that. But I think it's really important to look at these calisthenics guys, because they are basically experts of upper body strength. Let's be honest, especially upper back strength. They are experts of that, core and upper back. And so having them come into a movement like the deadlift, where we know they're not going to have really strong glutes and hamstrings and adductors and quads and whatnot, because that sport, that method of training doesn't lend itself to really strong legs. So when we see guys perform really good in the deadlift, then it starts to kind of question our thinking about what's really happening here. So for some of us kind of more into the powerlifting, bodybuilding world, we can take information like this and be like, okay, that's really interesting. So the upper back has a bigger role to play in all of this than we thought. So stuff like pull-ups, I mean, if you think about calisthenics, it's all about freaking hanging off the bar. It's all bar work. I know a lot of you guys have said rows, and rows in the bodybuilding and powerlifting community is massive. And I don't have anything against rows, but from my perspective, somebody that's into squatting every day, it changes things for me. I need to pick carefully. You can't have every ingredient in every dish. It doesn't work like that. The skeleton of your training program, the skeleton of your philosophy is going to dictate how much muscle, let's use that analogy, you can put on that frame. So if somebody that has a skeleton of squat every day, I can't afford to have, RDLs and rows and yoke carry and all and Atlas stone. Like, it's too much fatigue for the lower back. And as we know, that probably the lower back is the slowest recovering part of our body. And I remember this is why I gave up pin squats. The moment I started doing deadlifts more frequently, I had to give up pin squats because it was just way too much tension, way too much compression through my spine to handle super maximal loads in the pin squat and then come and do deadlifts the following day. It was just way too much to stomach to process. So ultimately I gave up a lift, which I really enjoyed, really loved, which was basically strongly responsible for my 17 days of hitting 200 kilos every day in the squat. The pin squats were a large part of that. But ultimately, I had to give way to that for the deadlifts. They made my body feel a lot better. They were much more kind of better for me. You added a pull and not just like a push, another push like a pin squats were. When I squat every day, once again, I need something to oppose the squatting. I need some pulling. And that's the ultimately how I got to that decision. So barbell rows for me, even though I don't mind doing them and I think they're a great movement, a lot of you guys said it's highly specific to what you're trying to do in the deadlift. I get that, but it's just too expensive. It's too expensive. And I speak about specificity all the time, but I'd rather, I know it's a different kind of body part, different emphasis, but I'd rather do good mornings, which are also very specific, but they're cheap. They're really, really cheap. There's not a lot of weight on the bar. With rowing, depends how much English you use, how much body English you use. You can really load on a bunch of plates with that. I remember back in the day, I used to do 3 plates with barbell rows. And I remember that was inspired by, I forget the fella's name. The really good deadlifter. It's escaped me. I first saw him on Mark Bell's video. The really good deadlifter. It's gonna come back to me eventually. But he was talking about cheating. He even said it himself. Really laying into those barbell rows, basically half deadlift, half barbell row. And he was saying that was kind of one of the biggest accessory movements for him when he's deadlift. It was just an incredible movement for him. Oh, Dr. Deadlift. I don't know why I can't think of his name, but Dr. Deadlift. He is the one that I got this idea from. And so I ended up getting to 140 kilos with straps, obviously, rowing. And it was kind of like half deadlift initially and then like flick it up and then just, smash the barbell row portion of it. So that kind of stuff, man, that's basically a replacement for your deadlift. You can't then go deadlift after doing that. It's just so damn taxing. So you kind of have to pick what you want to do. What's your frequency, what's your volume in your base movements, and then you kind of go from there and you work out what's what. Ultimately, I think specificity on the main lifts is a big priority for me. I don't want to go and not squat or deadlift for large periods of time. I don't like doing that. I don't like losing skill in the very sport that I want to do. You don't see Steph Curry go and play footy, for like 6 months without shooting a basketball because GPP, because he wants stronger legs, because he wants coordination or whatever the case might be. No, he's always shooting the ball. He's supplementing all the other stuff on top. So I think for that reason, bar, like hanging, pull-ups, chin-ups, you name it, all that kind of stuff is really good for me in terms of the lats. I think that's going to be my focus. How I'm going to set it up, I'm not sure. I don't know how long I'm going to feel crap like this. But I think it's going to have to be some sort of pull-up kind of variation. I think neutral grip, narrow grip, really focusing on that range of motion, really from a hanging position all the way to the top, clenching down my lats. I think that's what I'm going to be doing. So tomorrow I'm going to come in and I'll do some more pull-ups. Basically right now, this whole week is going to be a whole bunch of good mornings and a whole bunch of pull-ups. And that's basically it. Maybe I'll do some deadlifts tomorrow. Last time it didn't really go well. I tried to do 300. That didn't feel good at all. Just made the headache worse. So I have to take a step back from the heavy lifting and just focus on that muscle connection with the good mornings and the pull-ups. As much as that's not exciting to me, because we all have different reasons why we train and whatever. And a large part of my kind of a passion for training is the squat and then the deadlift. And so if you tell me you can't do that to your full extent, like today, I went up to 140. I really wanted to go heavier and harder, but it just doesn't feel good, man. Like my core, I'm afraid to kind of clench down on my core hard with the fear that I'm going to freaking blow a vessel in my head. So it is what it is, man. It's just one of those things. No one enjoys being sick, but Corona, man, COVID-19, what a time to live, man. Last 3 years have kind of been unrecognizable. The world's changed. It's world changed. We're all kind of locked in our houses. Anyway, that's a topic for another day. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and hopefully tomorrow I feel a little bit better. Peace out, guys.